Hi, I'm John from Gentleman of Whiskey. This is our friend Brad from the 717 Bourbon Society, and today we're going to try and trick him with Early Times Bottled and Bond.
I have strong feelings about one of these. It could all blow up in my face.
That's the fun of blinds, am I right? All right, so tell us about your thoughts on Early Times Bottled and Bond.
So I was introduced to Early Times before they made the switch to Sazerac, the blacktop bottle. That was the first one I ever tried, and I'm a huge Old Forester fan, so kind of instantly fell in love. It's a 1 liter bottle. It's great by itself. It's great for cocktails because of the proof point. Probably shouldn't admit it, but it's great even in Coke or ginger ale.
Oh, yeah.
So all around great bottle. They made the switch, the blue screw top when it switched to Sazerac, and I feel like I can tell a slight difference between the two of them. So I'm kind of biased to one, but
That's fair.
I've not blinded them before. So I would be very interested to know if I can still pick out my favorite or not.
Well, we're not going to judge you for putting it in Coke here. We are firm believers in however you want to drink your whiskey.
Yeah.
Because you've purchased it, you've spent your hard-earned money on it, you do what you want with it.
Yeah, that's actually why I think Early Times is such a cool bottle, because there's so many bottles out there where I would never pour it into a mixed drink.
So when they talked about blending it, I forget who it was. I think it was the podcast was talking about it. It might have been Bourbon Pursuit. I got really into Bourbon Pursuit for a little bit of time, and then I realized that I didn't actually like them. But I liked the information that I was getting from the Bourbon Pursuit. They talked about initially it was meant to be a bartender's bourbon, where it's going to be your kind of higher end well bourbon, and they weren't intending for it to be a really good sipper, but that's what it ended up being. And I think that's why Sazerac bought it and put it into their profile, was because they don't really have that. They have a lot of bourbons that they can't mass produce.
Yep.
Like even 1792 small batch right now. It drops on the release page in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
like,
allocated. Now.
Yes, it is. So with something like Early Times Bottled and Bond, hopefully it makes its way to being more readily available, kind of what they're trying to do with the Benchmark series.
Yep.
Just for your information, we did this bottle in April's Gentleman of Whiskey group tasting, and the Early Times Bottled and Bond from Sazerac won by a full point.
Oh boy.
Over Jack Bonded, Cooper's Craft 100, and Old Forester 100. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than you do. The old one and the new one are the same batches of barrels.
Yep.
So it's just, I think, in who's blending them.
Yes.
So the easy way to tell which one you have is the bottles. The old black screw top is the Brown-Forman one.
Yep.
Also on the back, it will say 2 DSP numbers. One of those is Early Times. The other one is where it's bottled. And then the Sazerac one will have this nice metal jacket here. Full metal jacket, if you will. So there's been released recently from Breaking Bourbon that they are no longer going to be distilling this at Early Times. It's going to distillation at Barton with the same original mash bill.
You would hope that keeps things the same, but I just don't know.
It's going to be tough, I think. I think especially Barton has a very distinctive flavor. It won't most likely be until probably 2024, 2025, because they just started distilling it in 2021, so it's bottled and bond. Has to be at least 4 years. I would assume it's going to end up being more like 1792 bottled and bond than it is Sazerac's Early Times, but who knows? We'll find out. But that is enough talking.
Time for drinking.
Time for drinking. All right, so I don't know what these are. He doesn't know what these are. I poured them into bottles. He poured them into glasses. So between the two of us, we have half of the picture, and we're just going to taste it. Yep. So nose first, then taste. Cheers.
Cheers.
A lot of brown sugar forward. A little bit of caramel.
Yeah, it's a lot of those sweet notes on the nose.
I get a little bit of like rye spiciness, but this is a low rye mash bill. I think it's 11%. If you ever want to learn more about the bottles, check the description.
This one's really nice. The balance with the oak. There's enough oakiness there to cut through. It's not just all sweet. It's not just all floral. You get a little bit of everything.
There's a little bit of color difference between these.
Yeah, one's a tad bit darker.
And that's why we're doing the chocolate cleanse.
You can't cheat then on what's in what.
I get a little bit of cherry out of this, a little bit of like nuttiness, like some dry roasted peanuts.
Yeah, I actually get like dried fruit, like raisins and cherries, dark fruits.
All right. I think it's time.
Taste?
Taste. Cheers. It's got some very heavy notes to it. It's kind of got all the scents from the nose, but it's like very leathery and oaky, I think.
Leathery's a good one. On the palate, that's kind of what I get first is some of that earthy stuff. And then it finishes more balanced. Like you get the fruit again, you get the oak again. It, it comes together. But that initial taste is just like oak and leather.
I feel like it doesn't drink like 100 proof. It drinks like probably a mid-90s.
What I always felt like, and really my bias towards the black top, I felt like the Sazerac version drank a little bit hotter. It didn't have as much of Old Forester's sweet notes. It just kind of drank hot to me.
Could be the distillation season too, though.
It could.
It could have been a really hot distillation season, and when it went into the barrel, it was like extremely hot. It took to the barrel very quickly, and making it a little bit more unbalanced.
I guess that's one thing that I haven't really tried is, bottle to bottle, black tops to black tops or screw tops to screw tops to see if there is really any, subtle variations there between them.
All right, enough talk. Number 2.
Second one.
Cheers. That is very brown sugar forward, a little bit of vanilla.
I get a lot more vanilla. I get some like cardamom, some more of those baking spices, like nutmeg, cinnamon. It's just got more of that sweeter profile to me.
There's not as much oak or like fruit notes to me. It's more like caramel, brown sugar, vanilla.
Yeah. The one thing that I always felt like I smelled on early times was like a carnival candy apple. Like that Granny Smith dipped in like the hard sugar, the caramel, like just that, you get the bitiness of the apple, but you get the sweetness of everything else.
Did you order it with or without nuts?
With.
Oh,
you got to go with peanuts.
That's the
peanuts
pro tip.
is the only correct answer on what nuts you can put on a candied apple.
Yeah, absolutely. After a few sniffs, though, I'm getting a little bit of youth. I'm getting a little bit of a grassy note off this.
Yeah. The first one, when you said some of the rye spice, you get some of the like spearmint and wintergreen. Like I never get it on the palate, but I get it on the nose sometimes. Some of the same stuff that you'll get out of a rye.
Yeah, like a nice 95.5 MGP rye. And now that you said that, I'm smelling it. The power of influence, am I right? It does just have a little bit of youthfulness that I think was not there on the first one. Is it time?
Time for a taste?
Time for a taste. Cheers. It's not as sweet on the palate.
I think it's sweeter than the first one. It's not as sweet as it comes across on the nose.
It's not as vibrant on the palate either. Like it seems to be just like dialed down a little bit. I don't know if that's like the spicy notes from the first one. I got a lot more of the sweet, the fruit, and the spice on the first one, where I'm getting a lot more like leather and caramel kind of just all rolled into one.
The way they finish on my palate is kind of flip-flop. The first one I felt, you get that oak and the leather as soon as it touches your mouth. And then when it finishes, it balances out. You get more of the fruit, you get more of the baking spices.
Yeah.
This one I actually get the other way around. Fruit first for me, and then the aftertaste is just all oak.
To me, it starts kind of watery and then works its way up into like leather and oak, and then kind of comes down into like a hefty spice finish, like baking spices in your palate, not necessarily like a heat spice.
So what are your thoughts?
I like number 1 better. What do you think?
I'm actually the opposite. I like number 2 better.
Okay.
It's a little bit more of that sweeter profile. I think it doesn't drink quite as hot. And even though you get some of those younger notes, I just like the balance on the second one better.
Okay. That does make sense. I agree with everything that you said. I just think I value a little bit more balanced, and one had more well-rounded notes to me. Okay, so which one is which?
So number 1 is left, number 2 is right.
Number 1 is left.
Number 1 is left.
So that is the new bottle. So that is Sazerac.
Yep.
And number 2 is the...
you blinded them into the color bottles.
And that would be consistent. Actually, I don't know that I've ever said which one I like better. But I think in this case especially, I tend to like the Sazerac a little bit more. I think it's a little bit better balanced. And it didn't have any of those young notes that I found on number 2. So you passed.
I passed.
Your palate is consistent.
Yeah. I can stop sweating now because I was worried, it was going to totally switch I stocked up on the on the old black screw tops because
Yep.
I loved them so much. So
Yep.
now I'm happy with my decision.
Yeah, there you go. I really don't think you can go wrong either way.
You can. I mean, if you see either one of these, obviously the blue screw top sits on the shelf now. If you see either one, or if your buddy has some that you can get your hands on, trade for one if you haven't had it. You know, if you know one of us, come find us and we'll certainly give you a pour because they are worth trying. They are awesome.
Agreed. If you like this content, check out our other videos, like, comment, and subscribe. And we hope to see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers. But overall, I mean, both of them early times, you know, they're fantastic. They're well-rounded. There's enough proof there, which, you know, I'm a big proof fan, but some people aren't. So,
Well, I for sure am.